What's going on, everybody? It is the Chasing Larger Sports Stories podcast coming back to you on this Tuesday night. Your hosts, Derek and Chase. Chase, my guy, I know it was your birthday just a day or two ago, and you're a month older than I am. You've hit the grand old age of 26. How does it feel to be 26 now?
Doesn't really feel any different, man. It does not feel different. It's just and my body has not caught up to me yet. I know that I'm gonna be regretting it here in the next probably 5-6 years. So we'll have to wait and see. Get back to me then.
Hey, I love it, man. Hey, I'm gonna be turning that age here very shortly, so I'm right there with you. But guys, we have a lot to discuss. We didn't really get a chance to do an episode last week. Schedules just didn't work in our favor, but we have a lot to discuss. A lot has happened since even just the game Sunday. So there's a lot to discuss here. And the first thing we're going to bring up, more trouble inside of Denver. Melvin Gordon was released by the Denver Broncos Monday after their game. And new reports are coming out, Chase, that apparently there was beef going on between Melvin Gordon and Russell Wilson. So Russell Wilson has an issue with a former ex-fiance of his now wife, Ciara, and that is hip-hop artist Future. A lot of people know who that artist is. If you don't, I encourage you to look him up. He's a very talented artist. Anyway, Ciara is actually suing him for $15 million currently at the moment for something I still have no idea about. But needless to say, Future is not a very well-known, very liked guy around the locker room for that specific reason. And I've even heard, Chase, that Future songs were banned from the Denver facility because of that reason. Now, after the loss on Sunday to the Raiders, who have been a dumpster fire of an organization this year, Melvin Gordon proceeded to play. He proceeded to play several Future songs back to back to back, very loudly for the whole locker room to hear, including Russell Wilson. And it was reported that Russell Wilson went to upper management and demanded his immediate release, and he was released later that next morning. Do you buy those rumors, Chase, that Russell Wilson forced Melvin Gordon out of Denver?
I mean, I kind of do, because George Paton and John Elway paid way too much money for Russell Wilson, and a guy that is a former Super Bowl champion and a guy that has been in this league for so long, has had so much success. You're going to listen to him if he feels some discomfort and everything. And I don't think that he is so much to blame for the Broncos' struggles right now. And I think it's more on the coaching staff and Nathaniel Hackett with the way that things are. But I think that if Russell Wilson goes crying to ownership and George Paton, they're going to listen to him, because, he's their golden boy there in Denver, and their only hope at, resurrecting the careers of a lot of these players on the team. So if Russell Wilson feels some discomfort on some of these players, you better believe that it's going to be heard, and he will ask for their immediate release or, pay cuts or whatever it may be.
Yeah, I mean, I found this situation very hilarious because, obviously, for one, I mean, I buy this completely that Melvin Gordon did this on purpose, because of for a few reasons. One, I mean, obviously with the backstory, if Denver purposefully banned that hip hop artist's songs on playlists that ever play inside the stadium and other things, then you clearly know there's a problem with it. And I totally get that. But I'm also under the impression that the Denver Broncos, who lost their starting running back early in the season, right? Jamal Williams tore his ACL. Javonte Williams tore his ACL. So he's gone, right? Melvin Gordon proceeds to be the number one. And then your backup running back who you just acquired a few weeks ago, Chase Edmonds, he is now predicted to be out for several weeks because of an injury himself. So currently at that moment, Melvin Gordon was the only active running back on the roster in that moment in time. And yet somehow, some way, he ends up getting cut and released. Like, you don't make that kind of decision unless something drastic is happening inside the building. And that makes total sense. I mean, you wouldn't have gotten rid of Melvin Gordon unless there was an issue with him and someone else. And these two have had issues, right? The Denver season has not turned out the way that anyone expected, Chase. We all expected Denver to maybe, help compete in the division, maybe not win it, but, at least be respectable in the division. But they have been anything but it. This team refuses to be able to score points. They always have troubles. I disagree with you on the fact that Russell Wilson is not the major problem with this offense.
He's a problem, but he's not the major problem.
Clint Kubiak was the one calling plays last week against the Raiders, and they still couldn't score 20 points in the game with it. I think the problem is, I think this is this event right here with Melvin Gordon is the broader view of everything that's happening in Denver right now. You're paying $250 million for a quarterback who can't win you games. You're not winning games because of Russell Wilson. And pretty much the only reason you have won games is because of your defense. I mean, let's admit it. The defense of the Denver Broncos is the only reason the Denver is ever winning games. Chase, I'm going to throw a stat out for you and just remind you of how crazy this is. So they said if Denver had scored 20 points in every game this season, they'd be 9-1. They'd be 9-1. That's how good their defense has been. In 9 of their 10 games, they have forced opponents under 20 points, but yet their offense is so bad, they can't even win games by getting 20 points. And you paid a quarterback $250 million to get you 25, 30 points a game, and you're not doing it. I mean, I understand totally that, Hackett has been an issue. And obviously the coaching staff and how things are going, it's not going well for them. But again, a guy who's getting paid that much money to win you games like this, he should be doing more. And that's the problem is, Melvin Gordon, I'm sure, is not the only one who, is frustrated with Russell Wilson in the building right now. He's just the first and only guy to, be petty about it in a way, right? Like, if anything, that was extremely petty.
It really is. I mean, and the whole thing with Russell Wilson, like you said, like, I agree that he is part of the blame, but he's not, the sole purpose of the reason why they are bad. I think that, you go back to the past 10 years with Russell Wilson in Seattle, he had eight out of the 10 seasons. He was, MVP type caliber candidate, led the Seahawks to the playoffs every year, went to the Super Bowl twice. I mean, you just don't go from an offense like that was prolific and a guy who was leading the charge, an MVP candidate every year, to just automatically sucking on the Denver Broncos. I think that, yes, he has something to do with it, but I do think that it's 90% coaching and 10% Russell Wilson.
I'm completely disagreeing with you, but that's for another time, for another day. I think it's more 50% Russell Wilson being the problem. But courtesy of our friend Josh in spirit, this meme was brought out earlier today. Says, even though you lost, say that stupid phrase or that dumb phrase, Broncos country, let's ride. And then obviously that meme, that brought a huge smile to my face this morning, Chase. I said it. That's probably one of Josh's best memes that he's given us all time. That's really freaking funny. Anyway, let's move on now from the dumpster fire that is Denver. And let's talk about the dumpster fire that is the New York Jets, Chase, and particularly Zach Wilson. That's right. You had me thinking, Chase. You had me thinking that Zach Wilson was going to turn things around. and I'm sure you're willing to admit this, Zach Wilson has been trashed this year. He has not, it has not worked for them. They got blown out by New England last week. The Jets just haven't looked good with Zach Wilson. I'm going to throw a stat line at you again here, Chase. Listen to how crazy this is. So 2 weeks ago, New England held Indianapolis to the worst offensive output that we have had in Indianapolis history. This last Sunday in the second half was the worst second half in New York Jet history. On Sunday, Zach Wilson had 9 completions. 9 completions. They had 10 punts. And in the second half, they had negative 21 passing yards. Not negative 21 rushing yards, negative 21 passing yards. And now we're at this situation where head coach Robert Saleh was asked by media if he was committed to Zach Wilson being the starting quarterback for the rest of it. And we have said, or he said that, I don't know yet. I'm not done evaluating. I will figure that out. Chase, is Zach Wilson's time in New York done at this point?
I want to first start off by saying the dumpster fire that is the Jets. I really don't think that they're a dumpster fire. I think it's just Zach Wilson.
Well, yeah, it's just Zach Wilson making the Jets a dumpster fire, basically.
Because like I told you, if the Jets had a competent quarterback, they are 8-2 right now. Because the 2 games that they got close on with the New England Patriots, they lost the first time 20-17. And then this past time by 10-3 because of a punt return. Now, give a credit to the New York Jet defense. They held a Patriots offense to 3 points all game long, pretty much.
Yeah.
And this is a team led by Bill Belichick and his son that is usually, pretty damn good at moving the ball up and down the field and running the ball, passing the ball, whatever it may be. This is usually an offense that is pretty decent at putting points on the board, and the Jets defense held them in check. Now, I think it's time to put Joe Flacco back in because this offense looked more in sync. This offense looked like they had life, and this offense looked like they were ready to come play every single day. And you even heard it from Garrett Wilson. When Joe Flacco was in, it was a lot different. The balls were more crisp. They were being thrown a lot better. They were, catchable every day. Zach Wilson had 22 attempts and 9 completions. That is dog shit for a quarterback in this league. Yes, I think his time in New York is up. And I do think that the New York Jets are a good football team, and I do think that they will make the playoffs, but they've got to make a change at quarterback. Either Mike White or Joe Flacco. One of the two have to step in there and step up and start playing because this Jets defense is playing out of its freaking mind right now, and Sauce Gardner is leading candidate for Defensive Rookie of the Year.
Imagine if they went with Justin Fields. I mean, just imagine that. Like it's so bad how they couldn't have made that decision. Like everyone
I saw something today, Derek, that kind of like irritated me because before this last QB draft, it was all talk about Trevor Lawrence being the prolific talent that we know and love, that he's going to be the next Andrew Luck, the next guy that's going to take over. But immediately after Trevor Lawrence, it was always Justin Fields. Like we were going to see these two go 1A and 1B, like talking about them going back to back for the next decade. We were going to talk about that in the draft. And then all of a sudden, this flashy kid out of BYU goes 11-1 to end the season, has a strong arm and a great combine, puts up good numbers. And then we're sitting here like, wow, this kid's unbelievable. And from what I saw at BYU, he was good. From what we saw in the preseason of his rookie year, he was good. For the first couple games, he was good. And then all of a sudden, he started taking a downhill slope. Got hurt, came back off his injury, played very well to end the season last year, and then just has not done anything since then. And I think that, you know, they have seen enough of him already to know that if he, you know, keeps playing like this, if he continues to play, who knows if they will? Because right now they're in the thick of the playoff hunt. They are in a wild card spot right now, and they cannot afford to lose any more games. So if they're going to be smart at this at all, they've got to put Joe Flacco in to win the games because he's their best chance.
And I'll just say this for the record. I never was happy with Zach Wilson being over anyone at that point. Like, I think Zach might have been my third or fourth best quarterback in that draft, but I was never willing to buy into the hype. I wasn't there because anyone can throw the ball and make it look pretty at times. But, you know, how you handle things and how smart you are and how you handle the pressure of being a quarterback is a completely different thing. And there was nothing to say that Justin Fields couldn't handle it, but Zach Wilson could. So the Jets botched this. And
can you imagine Fields in
7 games this year?
Can you imagine Fields in this offense?
Dude, oh my God. They would be, like you said, 8-2. This team would be incredible right now. I mean, look, what we got here, he has played in 7 games this year. He has thrown for 4 touchdowns. 4 touchdowns in 7 games. He's completing only 55% of his passes. He's only throwing for 100 and about 50 yards or about 180 yards per game.
Pull up Fields' stats.
I could definitely pull up Fields' stats. And then on top of it, when I was looking at Zach Wilson again, he's had 5 interceptions. So he's had more interceptions than touchdowns this season for Justin. And again, he's had a worse team with a worse situation.
With a worse
he's completing 60% of his passes for 400 more passing yards. Obviously, he's played in more games. But, again, he's in a worse situation. He has 13 touchdowns to 8 interceptions. Again, nothing spectacular. But then when you look at the rushing throughout the year, I mean, he has done a phenomenal job, especially over before last week, Chase. He had he was the first quarterback in NFL history to go back-to-back weeks where he threw for over 175 passing yards and ran for 150 yards in both games. The first NFL quarterback in history to do that. He was doing things even Lamar Jackson was not doing. And that's incredible for what Justin has had to deal with this year. And let me ask you, because we can end on this.
Exactly,
note.
Alex. Exactly.
Yeah. I'm going to ask you this because I think that Zach Wilson has lost the confidence of this team because what we saw is they asked him a direct quote, like, do you feel like you've let the team down, especially your defense, with how you have played over the last few weeks? And he said, no, and said that with a straight face. And on top of it, you have you have Garrett Wilson, your rookie star wide receiver, who has been the second best wide receiver in this draft class this last year, saying this shit is pathetic. What he's saying about this team's offense. You have Elijah Moore going on IG, posting a picture of him throwing a football, pretending like he could be a better quarterback than Zach Wilson. Like, that's where we're at right now. You have your offensive staff, your offensive playmakers calling you out, saying you are not doing good. You are not making this team better. And then on top of it, to go out and say you did not disappoint your defense, which has actually been doing its job. Any person who sits back and says, yeah, I haven't been good enough, guys. I'll be honest. I haven't done enough. I need to do more. But you went out there and said no.
Did you see what he did with Braxton Berrios?
No, I didn't see that.
So he had a very simple like a bubble screen. He basically Braxton Berrios went out like this, and he threw
then just throw it over the head, yeah,
and over his head. And Zach, what he does is he's just like, "What are you doing?"
I can't catch something that's 2 feet above my head. Yeah, people are literally saying he might be the worst quarterback in the league right now. And it'd be hard to find somebody worse right now.
Baker Mayfield.
maybe, but I think even Baker with, this offense would actually do a lot better than Zach. But obviously, like, again, this team, he is a young quarterback, but the problem you have right now is you're starting to see where guys in their second year normally should be taking an increase in their ability and how they handle things. He's going on a steep decline. And it's not the fact that they haven't given him weapons. They've given him plenty of weapons. You have one of the best young wide receivers in the league right now that if you actually threw the ball to him, he actually can be one of the best wide receivers in the league.
And then Elijah Moore complaining that he's not getting the targets that he wants.
Yeah, it's just do you feel the same way that Zach Wilson has pretty much lost his job because he's lost the confidence of the locker room?
Yeah, at this point in time, if you keep him as the starter, this team is going to start, falling apart. I told you, Derek, I told you before the start of the season, like right when the season was starting, and go back and watch the video. I told you my seventh team when we were predicting who's going to make the playoffs, and you gave me a dirty look and a weird face when I said, I'm picking the New York Jets. You're like, what the hell are you thinking? And then I'm like, I believe that this team is built for the playoff or for a playoff run and built to go to the playoffs. The only X factor that factors into this is whether or not Zach Wilson plays good. If he plays bad, they're not making it. If he plays good, they're making it. And what did I say? The Jets are good. The team is good. Zach Wilson's not playing good. And I said that from the start.
Yep, 100%. And because of that loss, the Jets went from being the fifth seed in the division or fifth seed in the conference to now being out of the playoff picture because of that loss. So, things are not looking good for the Jets in New York land right now.
They had to win that game and they would have been in first place last week.
Or they could have at least, or Zach Wilson could have at least completed a pass, and then you would have felt much better about where this team is going. You can lose to the New England Patriots. It's understandable, but at the same time, it's just not the fact that they lost, it's how they lost. And the fact that it is almost entirely on Zach Wilson. You cannot complete 9 passes in a game and only score 3 points and expect to win, and then not expect to get backlash because of it. But
that's some like Lions numbers, like old Lions numbers.
Seemed like Indianapolis numbers over the last few weeks, but even worse than us. And I thought we were bad. And oh my God, Zach. Okay, we're moving on. A new quarterback here in Carolina. Sam Darnold has been announced he will be starting week 12 instead of Baker Mayfield. Chase, I got to ask you, man, this was a former quarterback of yours. And, we saw him go into Carolina with a whole fresh new attitude. We thought maybe things would change. Is it safe to say after now being benched for 2 different quarterbacks, is it safe to say that the Baker Mayfield experiment has failed?
It has. And I was telling everybody that Andrew Berry and this Browns team knew how to evaluate talent. They knew that Baker was kind of like that, X factor in our offense. Like, this offense is good. It's good enough to put up numbers. It's good enough to produce. But Baker was not going to take us to the promised land. And they saw that. They knew that they could get somebody better. And if they could get somebody better, like a top 10, top 5 quarterback in the league, that this team would take off and be successful. And they knew that with the way that his play was, how many times that he fumbled the bag in the big games when it came down to relying on him and putting the game on his shoulders, to win, he couldn't do it. He never could do it. And that's what I kept telling people. I'm like, listen, getting Deshaun Watson was a massive, massive upgrade over Baker Mayfield. The talent's much better. The decision-making is much better. The arm strength is much better. Everything is much better football-wise with Deshaun than it was with Baker. And I was telling people that all along because I'm like, you watch. This guy cannot win when it comes to a big-time game and big-time play. He fumbles the bag. and because he doesn't have Christian McCaffrey there, because he only has DJ Moore, no more Robbie Anderson, no more of this, he does not have the type of talent that he had in Cleveland to succeed, or the type of coaching. Stefanski was a better coach than Matt Rule, and he brought the best out of Baker. And yeah, the experiment has failed and fell flat on its face. Now, is it too late to say that if he went to a team like, I don't know, the Steelers with Mike Tomlin, will he have much more success? Probably. But we don't know. We really don't know. If he has a good coach around him, he might have success. But no, it is definitely safe to say that the experiment has gone cold, gone dry. And part of the reason why they want to go with Sam Darnold again is they want to give him one more look with a different offense and see what they got with him to see if they're going to have to draft a quarterback this offseason or not.
Yeah, I mean, for everything that was supposed to happen with Baker, I understand that, with how Carolina's season has gone down with, firing the head coach and, guys that are leaving, because guys are upset with how things are going. And then, of course, the injury happening with Baker Mayfield. I get it. It hasn't been an ideal situation for a lot of it. But again, if you're a good quarterback in this league, you can make up for a lot of different things. And it was no doubt that he had weapons. He had weapons with Christian McCaffrey, DJ Moore, Robbie Anderson, plenty of guys that could have transpired some things, but, just wasn't able to do it. So, it is time for Carolina to start looking for their next quarterback as well, because clearly Baker and Sam and all these other guys, nothing's going to actually get the job done for them when things move forward. But let's talk about
Stroud to Carolina. Calling it.
It's probably what it's going to end up being. But let's talk about another former Ohio State quarterback in Justin Fields, who we mentioned earlier. He did suffer a dislocated shoulder in the game against the Falcons this last week. He did try to play through it, despite the fact that he couldn't throw. Unfortunate as it is, but and he apologized to the defense for not being able to close out the deal despite having the dislocated shoulder. Chase, let's talk about what Justin Fields has done this season. While the numbers have not been phenomenal, it has been very apparent that since the Washington game, or actually since the New England game in week 7, Justin Fields has looked like a completely different quarterback than what he has been before. Basically, over the last 5 weeks, Chase, he has been completing 63% of his passes. He has been throwing for on average about 150 yards a game. He's been averaging 2 touchdowns per game to only about half an interception per game. And then on top of it, he's been running the football on average about 13 times a game and has been averaging over the last 5 games close to 100 yards in those 13 rushes. So what we have seen from Justin Fields on the back half of what we have seen, Justin Fields is looking like the quarterback that a lot of people expected him to be when he immediately got into the league. And there's reasons for that. The offensive schemes have changed. They've allowed him to move with his feet a lot more often, which is now helping this Bears offense, which otherwise is just a complete joke. But allowing Justin Fields to move with his feet has really helped him in confidence. How do you think Justin is starting to kind of change the narrative around him that, he's not a good quarterback, this and that, and that, he's showing flashes that whether he stays in Chicago or goes somewhere else, that he can actually be a pretty good quarterback with somebody?
Yeah, no, I've had a lot of Justin Fields haters talk about how they were wrong, especially this one guy I follow on TikTok. He made a video, tagged me in it, and said, especially, like, I was wrong about this guy. He is balling out. And Alex, I know that you're a Lions fan. I know that having Justin Fields in the same division as you is heartbreaking. And I know that with you being an Ohio State guy, you really wanted the Lions to get him, man. But having him on this offense for the Lions would have been phenomenal. And with a better offensive line that they've got, the weapons that they've got around him, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jameson Williams, DJ Chark, and DeAndre Swift, it would have been amazing to see that happen. But, you know, Brad Holmes, maybe he can make a splash this year and trade up and get CJ Stroud. We'll have to wait and see. He's got 2 first-rounders to work with. Who knows? But, man, being in the same division as the Lions is going to be heartbreaking to watch and to see. But this dude – look at what he said.
Oh, man.
But no, like, I agree. Like, people were ready to write him off and
call him a bust.
Yeah, call him a bust. Go after a new quarterback. Like, they're ready to go. But I'm telling you, you give him an offensive line and put a couple weapons around him, this guy will be prolific. I am predicting this year that Jackson Smith-Njigba will go to the Bears in the first round. It'll either be him or Peter Skoronski, the left tackle out of Northwestern. Either of those two will go in the first round to the Chicago Bears. And I do not think that Jackson Smith will have to wait very long for his name to be called. I think what they're going to do is they're going to pair him up with Justin. He's already got familiarity with him, and it's going to work because it's going to give him a target that he feels the most comfortable with, and it's going to be his go-to guy and the best weapon that he has. And this Bears offense is going to take off and be phenomenal.
Yeah, I mean, I've been on the Justin Fields hype train since it started turning, man. And through everything, I have said that, you know,
you're right, Alex.
That this guy can be a next really good quarterback if you gave him time. My problem is that you can, I think the problem that we have with Justin Fields, like, and I'm talking fans, national media, things of that nature. The problem is we can't say at the same time that two things can be true, right? That Justin Fields is partially to blame for, you know, his lack of progression. And on top of it, can also just not accept that the Bears have not done enough to provide him stability in that offense, right? Because he is getting hurt every other week, Chase. Every other week, he's getting destroyed by somebody, and it's wearing down on someone who's trying to carry this team, but they're just not capable because, one, like you said, the offensive line is god awful. I mean, the Bears are one of the worst offensive lines in football, right behind the Colts right now, and giving up sacks per game. So that's an issue. And then when you talk about the wide receiver options that he has, I mean, Cole Kmet has not been great this year. They thought he was going to take a step. He hasn't.
Actually, he has. He has been Justin Fields' best weapon in terms of the red zone. And
if in terms of the red zone, yes.
If you look at the last couple of games, he has been Justin Fields' go-to target when it comes time for that. So, yeah, I think
he's been getting better. I just think the problem is like it was before. I'm talking about like before when everything was going on and, you know, Justin couldn't get anything going because nobody on the offense was stepping up. You know, their best wide receiver is Darnell Mooney, who on most teams is either a number 2 or number 3 wide receiver on most teams. So that's not good enough. He's not a number 1 wide receiver on any roster in this league. He is not. He is at best a wide receiver 2. So, you know, you're not giving him weapons. You went and got Chase Claypool for a second rounder Although in the first 3 games of Chase Claypool being there, he has totaled 5 catches. He has totaled 5 catches. So he's doing all of this in spite of Claypool not being involved in the offense. So that's what I'm telling you. And then on top of it, the problem you have is before they reach the deadline, right? When Chicago finally figured out an offensive scheme to allow Justin Fields to be like Justin Fields, what do? The next week, they trade away their 2 best defensive players. And now your defense can't stop anyone. You've given up an average of 35 points per game, and yet somehow, some way, everyone says, what's his record? What's his record? Like as if his defense isn't giving up over the last 4 weeks 35 points per game. Like he's supposed to do anything about that. That's the problem I have with people is nobody can give me a logical argument as to why Justin Fields is not good. He's showing it individually. He's doing things Lamar Jackson isn't doing. And yet somehow, some way, everyone thrives on Lamar Jackson doing all these things individually, but never gives Justin Fields the same credit. Why is that? I don't understand it. He's
Derek,
showing
you want to know why?
Why?
Because they're saying Lamar Jackson is doing the same thing that Justin Fields did. Because here's the thing. He's on pace to break Lamar Jackson's rushing record. And right now he's 5th in the league in rushing, like total overall yards rushing. And they're saying the reason why is because look at what Lamar does. He has garbage weapons, a garbage offensive line, and mediocre defense.
I would argue his offensive line is better than Chicago's.
Exactly. But they're saying like he's got a mediocre defense that's given up a lot this year. They're saying he has got no weapons as well. And yet he's putting games together and winning the games because of him. Justin Fields is doing the same thing that Lamar is doing, but he's not putting together the wins. Why? Because he's not putting this team on the back like Lamar is and carrying them to wins. That's also because the Ravens defense is much better than the Chicago.
Yeah, the Ravens team is better. 100%. And the other reason why, because Justin Fields is an Ohio State quarterback.
Exactly, Alex. Exactly.
I agree, Alex. Yep. Fanboys can't accept that someone else is doing it. And because he's an Ohio State quarterback. What's been the narrative around Ohio State quarterbacks forever? They don't do shit in the NFL. That's their point. They can't accept the fact that an Ohio State quarterback is actually doing something good with himself and making a team better. It's the fact, he just doesn't win. Well, look at the rest of his team and then come to me when he needs to demand a trade out of Chicago. Come to Indy, brother. Come to Indy. Be a part of the rebuild. Be a part of a team that actually can do something for you. Be a part of a team that has a top 10 defense in the NFL right now. And also can, if they improve their offensive line, they got one of the best running backs in the NFL for you. And you know what it's like to run with the football. Having Justin Fields and Jonathan Taylor running RPOs, are you kidding me? That would be the most deadly combo ever, dude. Who do you defend? You have to respect Jonathan Taylor, but you also have to respect the fact that Justin Fields can run a 4.4 as well.
Yeah, I know. And then pairing him with Paris Campbell, Alec Pierce, Michael Pittman, like those are all better weapons than anybody else.
And then the Colts can spend their entire draft just getting offensive linemen. Fix the offensive line. Do what you got to do.
Yeah, maybe sprinkle a wide receiver in there too.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting. Justin needs some help, man. I really hope he gets it. Just a quick
the Lions, like have the Lions trade their 2 first-round picks to the Bears and get Justin Fields.
Right. So just a couple injury updates. Kyle Pitts from the Falcons suffered a torn MCL. He is being placed on IR. So the Falcons generational tight end will be missing at least the next 4 games. And the Giants second round draft pick Wan'Dale Robinson tore his ACL this last week. So that is another wide receiver that the New York Giants now do not have.
That turf, man, it's deadly.
That's tough. All right, so we'll save a couple more of these because we're going to be approaching an hour. So we will just let it go at around an hour here. But we'll discuss some of these other ones tomorrow.
Derek, look at the free agent offensive linemen that are available that the Chicago Bears can go get. They will have one of the highest cap spaces in all of football this offseason. They've got Orlando Brown becoming a free agent, Jack Conklin, who is a solid right tackle, becoming a free agent, Rodney Hudson, center, becoming a free agent.
You got
Connor McGovern,
Jason Kelce coming in as an undrafted or as a free agent. You know, you got a bunch of different guys here that, like if you wanted to make a splash play for Orlando Brown or Jack Conklin, and you got all the freaking money in the world to do so. You got all the money in the world to do so.
You do, and if you want to build your offensive line through the offseason, get Orlando Brown, get Jack Conklin, get Jason Kelce, the freaking center from the Philadelphia Eagles, on your team.
There's a couple different names that they can bring up that definitely could at least improve their offensive line and what they're trying to do. There's a lot of different names that,
and then they can
a couple of them you don't have to pay big bucks for. But I'm me personally, but yeah, if you were serious about keeping Fields, get one of the top two in Conklin or Orlando Brown. You need to land one of them. Like write a blank check. Say write your number. Let's make it happen. Let's protect this franchise that we want to build around.
Yeah, I'd go get Jason Kelce for that middle, man. That middle.
I doubt he leaves Philly. And the only problem with it is Kelce is 35 years old. He's going to be 35 and a half when, he hits free agency. So, the only problem is I think the problem is you'd have to get into a bidding war with Jason Kelce. And I just think that
Bears got the money.
I understand that, but if you're trying to go multiple guys, like you can go and get a guy like Orlando Brown or Jack Conklin, right? And that solidifies one position. You can pay big money for that. You can go get somebody like a Cam Irving or a
Mitch Morris.
Here's another one,
Mike
McGlinchey. Mike McGlinchey from San Francisco is going to be one. He's 28 and a half. Go get him. Pay McGlinchey and pay Orlando Brown. That solidifies your edges. Go into the draft. Go and get an interior offensive lineman. You have fixed 60% of your offensive line right there and then. And that immediately makes Justin Fields a better quarterback. Instantly.
Derek, Mitch Morris is also a good center to pick up as well.
Yep. I'm sure we're going to talk about this a lot. We'll continue to move forward with it, but we'll go into this. So the Commanders have named a new starting quarterback, and that is going to be Taylor Heinicke moving forward. Even though there were some people that were saying that, Heinicke should have been benched last week against the Texans because he wasn't playing very hot.
So much for your second round pick, Derek.
Yeah, that's literally what I was about to say. I'm answering my own question here when I say, what does this mean for the Commanders and Wentz long term? Well, I'll tell you what it doesn't mean. It doesn't mean that Indianapolis is getting a second round pick this year. So, Washington, thanks for the third rounder. So, yeah, we get a third rounder from the Wentz trade now, since Wentz would have to play all the rest of the season in order to hit the 70% threshold. And he's obviously not going to play at this point. But what does this kind of move mean, Chase, for the Commanders and Wentz long term?
I think that Wentz is done. Like he's on his third team. He played lights out for the first two games and then played like dog shit after that. Like he has not put together a good span. You can't say that you don't have offensive weapons. You got Brian Robinson, Curtis Samuel, Jahan Dotson, Terry McLaurin. You can't say that you don't have weapons on that team. They got weapons. It's just Carson Wentz is looking more and more pathetic each and every team that he goes to. And I think that he is going to be more of a career backup after this than he will be a starter. Because if you could not get the guy who got him started in Frank Reich, if you couldn't get him to switch Carson Wentz around, and then Ron Rivera, a veteran head coach, then nobody else is going to do it. Nobody's going to be able to.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. Third team in 3 years. You know, you got chased out of Philly. You got chased out of Indy, and you're losing your job in Washington. I think it's time to, you know, hang the hat on Carson Wentz. I mean, great job to Chris Ballard for fleecing the Commanders out of that one. But yeah, Wentz is done for long term. I don't think that his career at this point is going to be like what's going to happen with Nick Foles. What happened with Nick Foles, where he's just going to be a career backup. He plays for a little while longer, but then, you know, just never sees the field anymore. The Commanders, I mean, yeah, like you said, I think they need to get a quarterback now, unless they feel unless they feel some type of way about Sam Howell going forward with Taylor Heinicke as backup.
Let him play a couple games. See what you got in him. Like unless you feel like you're gonna go into this offseason and you're going to ride or die next season with Sam Howell as your quarterback, then you're gonna need to draft somebody. But if you feel like he is the guy, then you know what? Then that's great. You can have him be your starter next year and then ride with him. But there's no way to know without starting him now. That's what I'm saying. Like, they need to see what they've got these next like 5 to 6 to 8 games or whatever it is with him to see if they need to draft a quarterback in this draft.
Yep, absolutely. All right. Well, we're on the last topic here of the evening, and it's where we discuss our top 5 teams in the NFL at this moment in time. So, Chase, would you like to go first, or do you want me to go first?
I'll go first.
Okay. All right, go ahead and give us your top 5.
Number 5, I've got the Dallas Cowboys.
Okay.
I got the Dallas Cowboys.
Give me this before we even continue. Give me one team that is just out of your top 5, like just out of it.
Man, it's tough because there's so many of them. But like, I mean, if I had to go with somebody, I would probably go with the New York Jets. I mean, because in terms of right now, the Jets are a great team and they're built great. It's just the quarterback situation is what's causing them not to be great. And like, I do feel like if they had, you know, a solid guy in there, they would be a top 5 team in the league right now at this point in time. But, you know, I am going to sit here and say, and start off by saying the Dallas Cowboys are my number 5 team. You know, I do think that, you know, if they can land OBJ, that is just a nail in the coffin to how this Dallas Cowboys team is going to take off, because I still think that they just put up a 40 burger on the freaking Minnesota Vikings, who we all thought was a great team. Actually, you know what? I'm going to flip-flop that. I'm actually putting the Vikings at 5 and the Cowboys at 4, because, you know, we've seen the Vikings. They've got a better record than the Cowboys, but like, they're all talk and no show. Kirk Cousins can't win in prime time, and we've seen it time and time again. When it comes to big time games, he chokes it away, and he's got so much talent on that roster that he relies too heavily on Justin Jefferson, and that's what we're seeing. We're seeing him rely too heavily. It's kind of like Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. He relies too much on Jamar rather than throwing it to T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd. And that's what we're seeing with the Minnesota Vikings. Yes, they beat the Buffalo Bills, but they got their asses handed to them by the Dallas Cowboys. The Cowboys have a better defense than the Vikings, and if Dak can put just a few points here and there, they can win. And I think if they land the OBJ sweepstakes, I think that they are going to be as successful as they need to be. Now, my third team, it's a shocker, and you know, it's going to be the Miami Dolphins, because with the way, yeah, I know that you're saying that they're like with the face that you're making, but like Tua is undefeated since he's come back off of his his concussion and his injury, and like he's been playing very well all season long. He has put up the numbers that he needs, and with the way that he's playing with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, it's very, very difficult to say that these Miami Dolphins don't belong in that top spot because they have beaten the Buffalo Bills. They have beaten, tough teams, and they're putting up the numbers like they said. Like I said, they couldn't do it with Skylar Thompson and Teddy Bridgewater. But the moment that Tua comes back, this Dolphins team looks phenomenal, and that's where it gets tough because, I think that the Philadelphia Eagles belong in this top 5, but I'm not going to put them in the top 5. I'm not going to, because we have seen a weakness with the Philadelphia Eagles. They lost to the Commanders. They almost got beat by the Colts. I think if they were to play a team with a dominant defense and a team that's got a great offense and a great, ability to attack the ball, then they're gonna lose. They've had a cupcake schedule, and that's not taking anything away from this Eagles team. They are very, very good. They are very, very they are built for success, but I want to see what they can do, for the rest of the season. If any team is just out, it is the Philadelphia Eagles. That is, they are just out for me. Number 2, going with the Buffalo Bills. Okay. Their offense is still great. Josh Allen is still producing. This is still a team to be a threat. I just don't know how much of his arm is getting in the way and being a key factor.
I think that's been the issue over the last couple of weeks, has been the health of Josh Allen being the problem.
Yeah, I think that that's what's the key piece of why the Buffalo Bills are not putting up the offensive numbers that they did in the past. And I think that's the reason why the Bills are struggling just slightly to put up the amount of points. They play the Lions this week, so they'll obviously beat the Lions. And then my number 1 team is the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah, let me guess. It was the Kansas City Chiefs. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the Kansas City Chiefs. I mean, Patrick Mahomes is doing it with a lot of decent wide receivers. I'm not saying phenomenal, but he's doing it with decent wide receivers. He's putting up the numbers. He's making plays, and you just saw it just happen against the freaking Los Angeles Chargers. He was down with 1 minute and 40 seconds left and came back and scored a touchdown after leading them down the whole length of the field. And he lost Kadarius Toney to a hamstring injury. Doesn't have him. He's gotten good chemistry with Juju. This Kansas City Chiefs team is built better than what people think. Yeah. And Patrick Mahomes is the leading candidate for MVP right now.
Well, I would still say that's Josh Allen, but it's definitely very close. I'll say this for you. You have the Vikings. Where did you put them?
5th.
They're not even in my top 7. They're not. They're 8-2, but Chase, they have a -2 point differential. -2. They've been outscored by 2 more points this season than their opponents. And literally, Chase, every game they win, do you know that they haven't beaten a team by double digits all year? They've literally beaten every team within 1 score. It's been incredible. They don't win games convincingly. They win them by squeaking them out. And I know that in the NFL, that doesn't matter as much. When it comes to college, that matters. But it does matter when you're trying to determine who's legit and who's not, right?
The Eagles have done the same thing.
I understand that. And that's what I'm saying is when it comes to Philadelphia, though, the reason that I have them where they're at is because, and I'm going to mention it, is Philly has outscored their teams by a net total of 80. It's the 3rd best in the league. The thing is their offense may be inconsistent at times, but there's one thing about their team that is better than any team in the NFL, and they shut down passing attacks. Their ability to stop people with passing, they are number 1 in passing yards per game. They only allow an average of 185 yards per game passing. That is dead first when it comes to this team. So my here's my thing. So my team that is just out is the Dolphins. Just out. Because I agreed with what you said that the Dolphins, since Tua has come back, they have, really, they've offensively, that team can score, right? We know that. Of course, they can, Tua can throw it to Waddle or Tyreek, and they can explode the game open for them. My only problem is, one, Miami doesn't run the football very well anymore because they don't have elite running backs like they did before, or they didn't have great running backs like they did before. And then on top of it, their defense over the last 5 weeks has been giving up over around 30 points a game. So that's the problem, is this Dolphins defense, which has always been really good with Flores, is not there right now. And that's what concerns me, is Miami's scoring all these points, but they're also giving up a lot of points. So that doesn't bode well for me. But my number 5 is going to be the Dallas Cowboys. I agree with you. The Cowboys who, by the way, have the second best net differential in points at 84. So they are not only beating teams, but they're beating them efficiently. And that's why I like them there, because even when they had Cooper Rush, they were still winning some games when they were winning by double digits. And why? Because their defense is elite. I mean, the amount of points allowed for this team, they have allowed the fewest points in the NFL, Chase. The fewest points allowed all season. That's incredible. That's something that last season, we mocked the Dallas Cowboys last season defensively, because like last year, their defense was shit. And now Trayvon Diggs is playing really well. Micah Parsons is 3rd in the NFL in sacks right now. They have somebody at each level that can dominate the game, and that's where it's getting better for them. So, and now that Dak Prescott's been back in the lineup, they're averaging 40 points a game offensively.
Imagine if they get OBJ.
Imagine. Yeah, and Dak Prescott has said he's been in open communication with him. And really, the only legitimate target he's had all season has been CeeDee Lamb. Like, nobody really else on the offense has really dictated games in the passing department. The Cowboys have been able to run the football with Tony Pollard. Fuck Dallas. Whatever. Whatever. It's fine.
It hurts my soul to say that they are top 5 team. The truth hurts sometimes.
But yeah, they're running the ball efficiently. Their Dak Prescott being back has opened up this offense. Right now, they're playing like a top 5 team. Number 4, I'm going with San Francisco 49ers. The defense, again, is one of the best in the league. In points allowed, they're the 4th best defense at points allowed. They are the 5th best team in point differential at 63. I mean, when you look at what Jimmy G has been able to do with these new weapons, I mean, he did just have 4 touchdowns in the game against Arizona. They finally feel like they're clicking a little more offensively with what they want to do. So defensively, that team's a great team. It's a top 5 defense. And then with the weapons that they have, they can beat anyone if those weapons are clicking. And not only when they win, they dominate people. And that's where, again, separating yourself from the pack. That's why I'm doing that. The Eagles at number 3 for me. Again, as you mentioned before, you didn't want to put them in there. That's fine. I know some people who have said, over the last 2 weeks that the Eagles have not really looked like the same team. But again, what they can do defensively is something that I think just bodes well for them going late into the season when you're facing teams that are, you're going to need to shut down defensively and stop their passing attack. That is a perfect thing to have. And that's why I put them at number 3. Now, it's funny because I remember the last time you told me that it was a mistake to put the Bills at number 1 and put Kansas City at number 2. That's what I did before. I'm just going to tell you right now, I'm not doing that again. Buffalo Bills are at number 2. Kansas City is at number 1. And I will explain why. Buffalo is number 1 still in the NFL at net point differential. So again, they're beating teams. They're beating them convincingly. Ever since, the Kansas City Chiefs game, it's been up and down because Josh Allen has kind of been up and down. They've allowed a few more points per game over the last week. I don't know what happened in that Minnesota game. It was just all over the place. I just wonder if their offense was thrown out of sync and that threw off their defense. I'm not sure. But the reason why I put Kansas City at number 1 is, like you said, to go along with the fact that their roster is very well built right now. They just seem very consistent. Kansas City, when you look at their schedule and how they've handled things, ever since they lost to Buffalo, they haven't lost a game since. They've won 4 in a row. They stomped San Francisco. They beat Jacksonville by double digits. Yeah, they had a close one against the Chargers, but they were on the road.
Allen and Mike Williams were back.
Yeah, so they haven't lost a game since week 6. So they've been consistent. Like you said, Patrick Mahomes is right in the mix for MVP right now. Offensively and defensively, they're just playing at a very efficient level right now.
And I just think
if you had to remake Kansas City going to play Buffalo right now, I truly believe Kansas City wins. Just because of circumstances, how both teams are playing right now. Kansas City is playing more at an elite level, and that's why I would pick them. So you can relax now. I agree with you. So
I did say it was a mistake.
Hey, you did say it was a mistake. You try to deplete your case, but anyway, it's okay. I get you.
I think Josh Allen's arm not being 100% is a big factor in this.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. It's one of those situations where the Bills, they need Josh Allen playing at 100%, because if it's not, then their team just looks different without it.
And you can't sit him because they're not going to ride with Case Keenum, because there's no way that they continue the success.
Yeah, they got to play him as long as he's capable of playing. So hopefully they can figure that out and get it, working the way they need to. I can look at their schedule coming up. They have
an easy game with the Lions this week. So
yeah, they're going to play the Lions. Ironic enough, because they were literally just in that field a week ago. So, it feels very much like home to them at this point. Like you said, on Thanksgiving. So, and then they got to go to New England. That'll be a little bit more of a tough one. They're going to face a good defense in New England.
I don't know if they're going to only put up 3 points like they did this past week. I think that Buffalo's got this in the bag.
Well, New England defensively is where it's at. They put up only 10 points, but I'm just talking defensively. That's going to make things tough for Josh, because Matt Judon leads the NFL in sacks this year with 13. So he's on fire. But yeah, like you said, and then they got to face the Jets again. I promise you they're not losing that game. I promise you they're not. I'll put a fat stack of cash on that one. I promise you they will not lose to the Jets twice, because they know they lost that one the first time. There's no way they're doing it again. So they got a relatively favorable schedule coming up. Only a couple teams that actually have winning records. Like Detroit doesn't, barely New York does. Chicago doesn't. New England doesn't. So, or New England does, but barely. So they got a favorable schedule coming up. So I'll take that. But all right, that's going to do it for this one, guys. I hope you all enjoyed. It was a fun one. We will be back again tomorrow night for another live stream, talking about some other things and discussing
Alex, tune in.
12 ones. What's up?
I said, Alex, tune in. Be there.
Yep, Alex, tune in. Thank you guys so much. This is the Chasing Larger Sports Stories podcast. Enjoy the rest of your night.